we are on Colin's Conversations. As always, I always let the guests introduce themselves, so you guys could kind of go tandem, pick one or the other, or however you guys want to do it. But let's start the show with, who are you guys?
Okay, so I'm Ravi Dodeja. I'm the owner of the Stone Oven Bakery and Cafe at Eton. I do have a business partner who wasn't able to join us today. We've been here, actually this location has been in existence since 2004. We took over in 2019, October. And so what we do here essentially is we provide, we're very focused on the artisan bakery aspect of the business. So we bake our breads fresh overnight every day. Everything is made fresh in-house. We turn those sandwiches, or sorry, those breads into sandwiches. We have a pretty extensive menu there. We also do salads made to order, soups, and then there's a whole bakery component. So we're essentially a daytime cafe. Right now, hours have been shifting around a lot because of the pandemic, but right now we're an 8 to 3. So we're done early afternoon. We service the really two segments, if you will. So you have your residential population here in Beechwood, Woodmere, and then you have the folks that are working in the businesses here. So if you drive up and down Chagrin, you'll see there are a lot of financial advisories, law firms. Obviously we're in this mall here. There's a business tower just above us here with a bunch of professional firms in there. So we service those folks, and the idea is essentially to provide a fresh, clean, healthy food alternative for those folks, again, during those daytime hours.
All right. He knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I have like nothing to add. Okay, I'm Julia Watson. I'm the wife. Basically I do the social media for this place, the photography for all the images. We used to have a lot more, before the pandemic, interior decor type stuff that we were going for, but kind of had to switch that whole model because of the pandemic. But that's what I was also doing as well.
We were killing it with the social media. Ever since I found the page, I was like, I'm hungry every time I look at it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's the goal. Before we get too deep into it, we always give everybody a gift. Being that you guys are a food service, you guys could definitely put this to use.
Okay.
Thank you.
You guys gave me a pop. I gotta at least.
Absolutely. There we go. Colin's Conversations.
Oh, wow.
So these are custom bottle openers made by Twisted Willow Fabrications. They're a metal fabricator out of New York that we did an episode early on.
Okay.
We went up and visited. They're a metal fabricator, but also a Siberian Husky breeder. So what better thing to drive up to New York and get to see cool machinery, and then also go to their backyard where there's like 20 Huskies.
Right.
Yeah. And like they also made a custom sled cart. So like instead of like for training, they made this custom thing that like it's one of a kind. I think they're coming to market soon, but definitely a cool thing to check out. And they do cool stuff. So they're like, hey, send me your logo one day, and next thing I know, I got a whole bunch of these, and we've been giving them out ever since.
This is really nice. Yeah.
Well, I actually like the logo here. It's exactly the configuration that we're in, doing what we're doing right now.
Right, the 3 people. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's normally 2 people, so now the logo fully makes sense.
Right.
So we're here in Woodmere in Eton. I actually just learned that there's a parking garage underneath here. So if you guys are coming here and there's no parking up front, I finally learned on the weekends it's free, and some other times it's pretty free. But there's nobody down there right now.
Yeah, and on the weekends, and nobody knows about it.
Nobody knows about it.
And it's really actually on the weekends. It's a good resource because this parking lot, non-pandemic times, is jammed all the time.
Yeah, you can't find a spot.
So it is difficult. Now they did extend this whole thing when they added Trader Joe's on the side. I guess it'd be on the west side of the property, and so there's a much bigger parking lot over there. But it's a little bit of a walk if you're going to come over to the mall. So if you do park in the garage, the elevators pop right up right outside our front door right here. So
yeah, it's super easy to find right off the elevator.
Right.
So you guys, this has been here since 2004, you said.
Exactly.
And then you guys bought into it recently. What made you decide that you wanted to get into this business instead of starting a brand new one? Or what made that the right choice for you two?
I guess there's a little bit of history there as far as, so we've known each other since our college days. We went to Ohio State, that's where we met. We spent a lot of time, we enjoyed the time on campus those first 2 years, and then after that we really tried to get out and just explore Columbus a lot more. And we spent a lot of time, I certainly personally spent a ton of time in different coffee shops around the city, and I preferred to study in that environment. So,
and this was before Starbucks. took over.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it was back when they still had all these little coffee shops.
They were
throughout
mom and
town.
pop, you know.
Was Colin's Coffee in existence then?
Colin's
Over
Coffee.
by Hayden Falls?
I don't know that no, I'm not familiar.
We just found that one a month ago. We went down to Columbus Zoo, and on our way taking the back roads up to Salt Fork, we found this. After getting the worst Starbucks experience ever, like we spend way too much money on Starbucks. Like we lived across the street for one, which kind of fueled an addiction that was like you still can't break. It's worse than like a heroin type thing.
Right.
But we had a horrible experience, and then we're driving. You see my name, other than anything that I do, I put my name on it. But you see it nowhere in a souvenir shop, and I was like, Colin's Coffee. Turn around, we gotta go see what this place is about. Next time, I don't remember the exact suburb, but it's by Hayden Falls, and it's Colin's Coffee. Great, one of the best macchiatos I've ever had. And again, it's kind of, you find that off the cut place, you're like, this isn't Starbucks. You know, they had books, you could spend the whole day there if you
That's
wanted.
awesome.
Yeah. So those are always the types of places that we sought out. Now again, Starbucks was in its infancy back then, but you know, in the back of our minds, or actually really in conversations that we've had at the time, we'd say, well, wouldn't it be great if we could have a place like this? It's really, you know, the idea of a whole community gathering place that you can be relaxed, that third place, you know, that people talk about. We always wanted to be able to host that, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word.
Right.
But we never really pursued it seriously until really a couple of years ago, when now we've been open to doing something on our own for quite a long time. So we've looked at a lot of different opportunities, talked about a lot of different business models that we could approach. What really happened here is we were friends with the previous owners.
Okay.
And they still own, so there are 2 locations right now. There's one on Lee Road in Cleveland Heights, and there's this one here. There was one at Galleria downtown. They decided to close that a few years ago. And there's also a commercial bakery component of the business. And we were out to dinner one evening, and we were just having a conversation, and, you know, I said, well, what's your exit strategy? And, you know, they're getting a little bit toward the end of their you know, time. They want to do this, and they wanted to divest certain parts of their business. I didn't know that at the time. We were just, you know, striking up conversation. One thing led to another, and then, you know, a few months later, here we were. So
that's awesome.
So it just kind of fell into our laps a little bit in terms of, you know, the opportunity.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing that we were thinking. You know, it's like you don't know until you start talking to people. Right. It's not like you just wait and hope that an opportunity shows up. You have to just like, I mean, we were literally, everybody we knew, we were like, hey, so do you know? And then, you know, most of them didn't pan out, and then this was just another one, and then it was like, okay, let's actually pursue that. So I think that's something that we learned, is that you have to just sort of put yourself out there so that things show up.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, especially in the internet age, you could connect with so many different people the same way that, I mean, where now is, you know, I knew you through Lakeland, for Lakeland, that was 15 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, just about.
I've been there too long.
But, you know, I mean, you were just a teacher that, you know, same too, like somehow you and I made that connection that, you know, I had a landscaping business, probably why do you keep showing up to my class late and dirty? Oh, I'm a landscaper, you know, here I am. But, you know, then that made the impression on you to one day, I think you guys years ago had a broken lawnmower, or no, you hurt yourself. You hurt your ankle.
Yeah, I had
the Achilles.
Tore my Achilles tendon.
Yeah, so you know,
mow the lawn
because we made the connection and stuck with it. You're like, oh, this guy does this. Let me see if he comes out here. And ever since, we've kept in touch. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh, by the way, I have a podcast. Oh, by the way, I have a restaurant. What a perfect combination, you know? And again, it's being able to keep the connections, and if you want to make a new content, you want to make a new relationship, you just got to ask questions. Everybody knows somebody. And like you said, if you talk to 15 people, somebody knows a restaurant that's up for sale, or a food cart, or a food truck, or some variety of what you're trying to put together. So you were trying to get kind of a coffee shop. This kind of fell into your lap. Was there ever an idea of doing a full-time, daytime, or like what am I trying to say? Like you have your cafe, but also do a dinner menu?
We actually, so originally they had this location open, I think, until like 7 p.m. in the evening. And then they had backed that off to 6 and then 5 when we took over. We immediately, of course, you can look at your sales throughout the day, and the profile was really focused in that 11 to 2 time frame. And anything, you know, outside of that, of course, breakfast was a little bit stronger, but toward the end of the day, nothing was happening, and we had a lot of people just, you know, sitting here like we are, swinging their feet and, you know, doing nothing. So So we backed that off. When the pandemic started, we actually did try to do a dinner business for a little while. The idea there was, okay, everybody's stuck at home. They want to, get food from outside. They don't want to just keep cooking and eating their own food every day. And we heard that from a lot of folks. So we thought, well, this is a convenient, grab and go, kind of a healthy, dinner option for a lot of people. Unfortunately, that really didn't work well. I think a big part of it for us is we're really not known for that. So it was outside of our, competency, if you will. And the other thing is, if you look up and down as you came in here, we've got Taza right next door, they're a dinner place. We've got Pacific East next door, they're a dinner place. Then you have Paladar, and then you have the Mitchell's Fish Market right there. So, we're really surrounded by a lot of places that you would think of as a dinner. If you're in Woodmere and you're looking, and there's a fair number of restaurants around, but we're smack right in the middle of that. So I think it just didn't play very well to our market here, and so we backed off of that. We don't have a liquor license, so I think a lot of people go out for dinner and they want to have a glass of wine or something with their dinner, and we can't provide that here.
Right.
So we've decided to kind of more focus in on what we're really good at and known for, and let these other guys make the money in the evenings.
Right.
Sorry about that phone.
It's because you guys are so popular. Everybody has to know. Yeah, and as soon as you said it, it makes sense. There's a lot of competition that you probably want to, why be just open while everybody else has a booming dinner business, but kind of like the idea of they go there and then come here for, a coffee or an ice cream.
Certainly,
or something
potentially
like that.
Afterwards, yeah. And that's something we've thought about, but we haven't pursued it yet.
The liquor license, is that just something you guys haven't pursued, or you just can't get it because there's already so many here?
My understanding is that the original owners did have a liquor license right in the beginning. They decided to let it go for one reason or another, looking through some of the old documents for the business. So I don't know how difficult it is, honestly, to get a hold of one of those now.
But it makes sense if you already have the morning thing figured out, just save the extra hassles and the extra legislation and all that for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think now, kind of getting to what we were talking about before, looking at different opportunities. One thing that I've discovered, and I haven't been doing this for a very long time, but when you get into this whole world of owning and operating your own business, those opportunities that we're suggesting other people go out and look for, they come to you a lot more frequently. They never came to me, I should say, before having this, right? But now, people who own businesses like to talk about their business, and so you have these different conversations around, well, hey, there's a space opening up over here, or somebody else wants to sell their location, their different type of business. Would you be interested? So we get a lot of opportunities now to go out into the community and talk to different people, not necessarily strictly in the restaurant business. A lot of those opportunities just aren't a good fit for us. So, for a number of reasons. Maybe it's not our area of expertise. We just don't have the time right now to pursue it. The investment might, not fit, what we're looking for at the moment. But now I have these, in my head, and I know what is out there, and so I might be talking to somebody else, and they'll say, well, hey, I'm looking to do something. I can tell them, well, I happen to know that this, people are trying to sell their business. This location has just opened up over here. You could do this with it, you could do that with it. And so, a lot of those conversations are what, ultimately, hopefully, will lead other people to pursue whatever it is that their dream is. So, and I'm losing my track here as far as what your question was. But that's something I just wanted to highlight, I guess.
Right.
Getting back to that earlier point.
You answered the question for sure, but also another new one out of that is you've said 18 different business terms, like you definitely have a business education. What were you doing before you got into this?
Right, so my background is actually in material science and chemistry. That's what I went to school for. And so I did about 15 years of contract research and development for a bunch of different branches of the military, ultimately, under the SBIR program, it's Small Business Innovative Research. And so what they do is they say, well, we have a need for this, need for that. Do you have a technology that could meet that need? And then you write a proposal, you get some money, and then you can pursue that. There's different phases, and it's a whole big industry of its own. So I did that for a number of years. Actually, that took me right up to that 2008, 2009 timeframe. And a whole bunch of bad things happened at that time. Well, one of the things that happened was the money flow to these types of projects just seized up completely.
Gotcha.
So we had obligations from the government for projects we were doing, but the money was just not flowing. We got into this impossible cash flow situation and basically just shut the door and left. So after that, I went to business. I decided I wanted to change my career path. So I went back to business school and ended up getting into more business development and then working as a part of a business consulting group for a number of years. And so we would work with, now there wasn't anything like this. It was like big Fortune 500 companies, and they were looking at acquiring other companies, or getting into new markets, or launching new products, or whatever it might be. Debt offerings, IPOs, all kinds of stuff. Worked with private equity companies, actually a couple of them right here in this building. And so that's kind of where I was going to business school and doing that job at the same time. So I did get a little bit of a background there. And then most recently, I ended up working for one of my clients after that, and that was the last thing I did before coming here. So I managed a P&L for that company, and I was working very closely with my business partner now here. When this opportunity came up, I have had zero experience. Neither of us have had any experience in the restaurant industry. So, this whole thing, when you're evaluating a new opportunity, you think about all these different things, and obviously, what is your level of experience going into it? And mine was zero. But it just so happened that my partner, and he and I had worked together at that point for about 5 years, and we're already talking about, well, what kind of opportunities could we pursue on our own if something were to come up? He happened to go to school for hospitality management originally.
Gotcha.
And his first job out of school was for McDonald's, and he ended up becoming I want to say district or regional manager. I don't know exactly what the hierarchy is over there, but as part of that, they send you for these intense training programs that they call it Hamburger U. It's somewhere in Chicago you go to, right? And from what I understand, that's some of the best restaurant training that exists out there. And obviously, there's a hugely successful company, right?
Right.
So he had that experience, and then he kind of like me with my material science thing. At some point, just said, okay, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. Got to switch. And then he got into different sales positions, and ran some business lines in other companies too. So we meshed very well in that, I had more formal business training. I've been interested in, financial markets and investing and, developing portfolios and all that, just kind of personally and for family and friends for a long time. And then he brought all this restaurant experience. So this was a good fit. It worked out well for us.
Well, you mentioned that you guys both had zero restaurant experience. A lot of people in my small business marketing that I do with people, everybody thinks marketing's hard. They don't know how to market, all these things, where they don't really realize that marketing business is just reverse engineering the experience, where you think that you had no restaurant, but you had been going to restaurants for years beforehand. You knew that you liked the coffee vibe. You knew things that you don't like.
Right.
So to have that business knowledge and also just the personal of what should the experience be, I think kind of gives you that also, where you don't think you have that, the same way if you're like LinkedIn, where you put in all your certifications, you're like, oh yeah, I know how to evaluate a restaurant, even if you don't know the ins and outs of the days, but you've learned it on the fly, obviously.
Well, you have to, and I'd say to anybody who's out there looking to start something on their own, a million things hit you in the face immediately.
Right.
So yes, I can sit here and tell you, I went to business school, and and I ran a part of a business for this company, a line of business, if you will, P&L. Well, it's so much more than that, right? Because when you own the business, now you've got to do your own accounting, your own finance, your own human resources, your own sales, your own marketing, and I wash dishes every single day. So I'm doing all of those things at once, and I wasn't really prepared for all of that. So learning on the fly is a component for anyone. But the one thing it does for you, Colin, that's great, is it gives you that confidence. So then you can start to look at other opportunities, and you can say, well, I've already done this. Yes, it's a little bit different from the business I'm running right now, but all those other components of running a business, I know how to do.
Right.
And so that's a huge, just for me personally, I'm very happy about the way that I've grown in the last, it's only been a year and a half so far, or a little more, to develop that confidence. And, it's scary when you get into it, but then you force yourself to learn, and you get better at it, and you make a lot of mistakes along the way.
It's only a mistake if you don't learn, though.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Exactly.
I mean, and our problem, like our personalities, we're very careful with everything. So like we always, we talk about like, we do so much due diligence that we end up in this like due diligence rabbit hole where you end up being so careful and calculating and considering every possible bad thing that might happen that it stops you in your tracks. And that's sort of what held us back, I think, for a lot of years, where we've always had this idea of a place like this since we were in college, and yet we were so careful. And so we were too careful. And at one point we were like, well, wait a second, if we're that careful, we'll always see a no wherever we look. So we need to just say, screw it, we're gonna just jump in and do it.
Absolutely.
And then the pandemic hit. So, well, timing was bad.
And I think that right there is probably a pretty good, from what I'm gathering, one of the things you want to do is just kind of talk about the whole entrepreneurial experience. And so folks that are, listening to your content, watching your content, can feel maybe a little more comfortable or, to get up and go and do that. So, so if we're going too much into this.
No, you guys are doing great.
Okay.
You guys are knocking this out the park.
Okay. So
you guys are actually doing so well that both of those cameras won't work and they'll be like completely wiped by the time I walk out through the threshold of here. But no, you guys
We'll have like a sound issue or something.
It'll be just like flashing screens. But no, you guys are doing great.
Okay. So, well, I think, what Julia's brought up is a great, example for folks that are worried about starting something. So that, the two things that, to me, one is just being aware of what's around you and keeping your eyes open and ears open to opportunities. The other one, though, is the fear or the overly due diligent process, of evaluating a business that people go through, and they eventually hit the no, and it's like, okay, that's it, we're out. The worst, one of the worst things that can happen, did happen in our situation.
Right.
October 2019 is when we took over here. Now, we had the benefit of this was an established business already.
Right.
There were a lot of issues with it that needed to be fixed, sure. But it was established, there's some brand recognition, and that's all, helping us. But within the first 6 months, I guess we had 5 months, we had to close the business due to the pandemic. So, DeWine's order was, I think, on the 15th or something of March. And we closed on the 18th, and we didn't reopen until May 18th, so it was a full 2 months that we were closed. So having made an investment in the business and then having a few months to improve things and then having to shut down.
Right.
And, of course, I tried to renegotiate with the landlord here. We didn't really make any progress there, so I'm still paying rent. You're paying, New York City level rent in this place. It's, when you're a few doors down from Tiffany and a few more doors down from Apple Store, you pay out the nose. So
I can only imagine.
It's very, very high rent. So we're paying that level of rent. The restaurant business too, this is something we've changed. People pay things, a lot of businesses are like this, it's not just restaurant, but you pay things in arrears, right? So if I get a food delivery today and it's a few $1,000s of food comes in through the back door, I don't pay for that for another 2 weeks typically. So it's this rolling cycle of 15 days, and that's for everything. That's all the supplies and all the other things that we pay for. So this pandemic taught us that, hey, don't do that. So now we pay everything the day or the day after, whatever, as soon as we can, upon receipt of the goods. But this thing that people worry about did happen to us, in that within a few months we had to shut down, and so now we're in a big difficult situation. And it wasn't like we just reopened and the business was operating like it had previously. We had to completely redo the whole workflow, the way that folks come into the space, give them a contact-free or contactless pickup option, curbside. The other big factor, huge factor really, in my mind, was we need to keep our staff from getting sick. We can't allow them. One, I don't want anybody to get sick. I certainly didn't want to get sick myself. But two, in order to maintain the operation, we had to protect the employees the best that we could. And so what we did, and you can't really see this on the camera, but in our dining room, this is all food preparation that's happening here all day, every day. Well, this used to be dining room over here. So we had to commandeer some portion of the dining room and turn that into the food preparation for a couple of reasons. Just to space everybody out, because we used to all be behind the counter over there, and there'd be 6 or 7 of us at any one time bouncing off of each other, and that's not social distancing, right? So, so we're trying to give folks here that work here the opportunity to social distance and to distance from the customers. We want the customers to be able to have a contactless experience as well. Dine-in was basically, that was, for that period of time, it didn't exist really anywhere around here until they relaxed the rules a little. So, and our revenues suffered. We dropped. When we reopened, we were running at 1/3 of our previous revenue. We eventually got that up to about 1/2. Eventually got that up to about 2/3. And we're approaching. Things have changed a lot in the last really just 2 to 3 weeks. To where people are getting more comfortable. Vaccines are out. Obviously, the weather is getting better.
Right.
I think there's some latent demand there. There's probably a tremendous amount of that latent demand for opportunities to get out and be with friends and to gather and socialize and all of those things. So, which is something we offer here. So things are definitely moving up now. But that greatest fear of, well, what would happen if the whole place burned down and we had to shut down for a couple of months, essentially did happen to us.
For sure.
And we did find a way to get through it and survive. And I think we'll be much stronger for it. So, you make changes, you make these adjustments, but we didn't have online ordering when we first started. We developed that during the pandemic. We didn't do any delivery services. So now I've got Grubhub, I've got Uber Eats, I've got Postmates, I've got DoorDash. Uber Eats and Postmates have just joined forces, but so we've got 3 different delivery services. We've got our own online ordering, and so it's made us much stronger, I think. So once we get back to normal, we'll continue to do those things, and I think overall the business will thrive.
Absolutely. You covered almost everything that I was going to talk about with pandemic, COVID, with the exception of you made a lot of changes to in here. You made a lot of changes to the way that you did things. What about your menu? I know almost everywhere that we are like normal regulars at, the menu went like way down in a lot of places, or a lot of even a lot of my favorite things kind of disappeared from menus. Seems like you're really analytic with data and everything, but like kind of explain how you guys picked of what stayed on the menu, went off.
We did restrict the menu to an extent initially, but not a whole lot really. We kept most of them. Again, you can't see it. The core items that are there, we kept. We would always introduce specials and different things to keep things interesting, because we get a lot of regulars here, and they do get tired of ordering the same thing over and over again. I understand that, so we try to provide those alternatives for them. That kind of went away, so the specials we held back on.
Well, and also breakfast, right? Initially, because breakfast was like a big weekend thing. People would come here, they'd meet their friends, they'd hang out, they'd order all this breakfast food, and it was all carryout. So it's like, okay, I guess we kind of can't do that, because it was so, being inside the space was conducive to having this big breakfast thing.
Well, also during the week, I mean, you had the folks that were in the building working here in the offices. They would come in and they'd have their breakfast meetings here. So okay, it was pretty simple. It was a pastry and a coffee, that kind of a thing. But two things. One, they couldn't dine in, and 2, they weren't even here. I mean, they were all working from home. So any of those professional types of jobs, which unfortunately was a big issue for us, because like I said, we've served the community, the folks that live here, but a big part of our business is the folks that come here to work. And those folks were just working from home. All these professional jobs you can do on a computer from home. So they chose to do that, and they to this day they continue to. So the building here is still relatively, it's not empty. It's probably, I don't know what percentage, but it's definitely not near its full capacity or near what it was prior to pandemic. So those couple of things, what Julia mentioned and what what I'm talking about with the business folks, that market just faded away and disappeared. So we didn't. So like to your point then, breakfast we essentially just didn't do for a while. So we just opened up. We opened a little bit later and just kicked it off with lunch. So we had to make those adjustments. But then you start to get a sense. So people start coming in and they start asking you. You get the question, and then you get the question 5 times a day. Then you get it 10 times. Then now you're getting it 25 times a day. Hey, are you going to open for breakfast soon? And then that's an indicator to okay, there's enough of a demand
Right.
You know, for those 25 people that asked you, there's probably 100 other people out there that might, you know, be thinking, you know, I'd like
they
to go out
didn't
for
ask.
breakfast.
Yeah,
They didn't
right,
ask. Okay, so then we started doing it. And then we, you know, it slowly ticked up, and same with the dine-in. So, you know, the big decision point was, when do you open up for dine-in? And, you know, I based that decision ultimately on that same factor. You know, people are coming in and asking, and I got to the point I was so sick of hearing it, frankly, that
Right.
I said, okay, just open it and let's just do it now. And, but, you know, we're in this transition phase where a lot of people still want to just come in, grab a bag and go. They don't want to exchange money, credit card. They want to be in the space for as little time as possible, and they just want to grab it, or they want you to bring it out, either way. And so you have to accommodate those folks and the people that are comfortable. They've had their vaccines, they just want to get together with their friends or their family and enjoy a lunch out. So right now we're in this tough transition period where we're trying to balance all of that. And that's why the place looks a little weird. We've got places, you know, cordoned off here and there, and, you know.
Right.
Eventually we'll get back to where it's a full, you know, operation with, you know, people sitting in here. And I can't wait to get back to that, because honestly, this place before pandemic, you come in at lunchtime, absolutely packed, voices, it was so loud, like
Yeah,
you could
noisy,
barely, you
yeah.
know, you're telling people, calling out their orders, and they can't hear you. You know, we keep the jazz music going in here and everything, so it's a really great atmosphere.
Right.
And I think we'll be back to that pretty soon. I think, you know, really within another month or so, we should, I think, be really close to seeing that again, the way things are going right now.
Mm-hmm. And it's you that's handling the atmosphere, the marketing, and kind of the experience. So I wanted to get your opinion on what makes for the right atmosphere or a good atmosphere in a cafe. Kind of, what's your like behind the scenes, like not behind the scenes, but like what's going through your brain when you're like, how should I arrange things, or what colors should be in here, those type of things.
Right. I mean, when we first got this place, it had no real vibe, right? Like it was just sort of very practical. Like you come here, there are tables, you sit, you eat food, you know, and that was about it. But there wasn't like an atmosphere, I guess. And so we kind of wanted to go for, just because of what we offer and the whole bakery thing, you know, a lot of it is revolving around the bread, because the bread is sort of the soul of this whole establishment. And so we were like, well, how about sort of like a comfy sort of European, you know, you can't name the country maybe, but just this European feel, where it's like a small town with a cafe where the locals come in and you can hang out. And so we just started to sort of pick colors, and, you know, I mean, you can even see with this mural that we had done by John Troxel, who is amazing. If you go on our Facebook page, I have videos of him actually doing the painting. It was really cool.
Right.
The stages of everything he did. We wanted to pick like earth tone colors so that it felt warm, and that you could just kind of hang out and feel like this is where you meet your friends. This is a community space where you hang out. That was really the main thing. And I mean, I gotta admit, I mean, part of it was just how we felt about those things. Like you were saying earlier, you realize you know more than you think because of like our experience going to a bunch of coffee shops when we were younger. And these were the things we liked that made us want to hang out at that place. And that's sort of what we brought in to this place.
Well, it's also, and I'm sorry, but so the concept of this place is really this whole European bakery cafe. So if you've had the opportunity to go to Europe and visit some of these similar types of establishments, the focus there in a lot of the places we've been to is really you pick the bakery you pick the place you go based on their bread, based on the bakery side of it. Anybody can make a sandwich, anybody can put some meat and cheese on a piece of bread, but you go there for the bread. So you decide, you know, if you're in Paris and you're walking around, it's like, well, that bakery has the best, you know, baguette, so I'm going there. And so you base it on that. Well, that happens to be our focus as well, right? So our, you know, the core of the business really ultimately is this artisan baked bread, and it is fantastic. And we'll give you some. Hopefully, we can give you some to take home. But we didn't bake today because we're closed. But so this whole idea of putting this mural up and making it a sort of a street scene, you know, like she said, a European city, you can't tell exactly where you are. And of course, the artist brings his own flair to it. He's got his own style and everything. You know, that was a nice fit, you know, for this space. Again, John Troxel is fantastic. He had done a mural at the other stone oven that we really liked, and so when we took this space over, we immediately called him up and said, because this was terrible. This was just, I can't even, I don't want to go into it. It was terrible. What was on the wall before. So, and we said, well, hey, this is kind of what we have in mind. And he actually suggested doing this perspective. He said, well, you've got a little bit of a narrow space here. We can open it up. You know, we give it the feeling of openness if we do a perspective, you're looking down the street. And so that was completely his idea. I thought it was really good. And so he's been great to work with. Absolutely.
Yeah, what I was going to say was when we were hanging out in the lobby right before you guys got here, you know, you were kind of peering in, kind of looking like, where can we set things up? Or, you know, kind of just getting the vibe for things, looking at the menu and all. And like you mentioned, you have Tiffany's, you have the Apple Store, you have a lot of these really like almost unapproachable brands that are in this shopping center. And then you kind of look in here, you're like, oh, well, those tables look like they're comfy. You got a bunch of top, you know, low, high, you got a bunch of different options. And I started looking at the menu and I was like, that's about way too cheap to be in this development, you know, because again, you're thinking everything that's over here is, you know, a lot more expensive, and then you're like, oh, well, anywhere I go for one of the, almost everything on that menu is either competitive or almost underpriced, it looks like.
Right. That's something we've kind of struggled with. We did raise our prices a little bit right when we, not right when we started, but a few months in. Mm-hmm. And if you are dining here and you see like the volume of, you know, a salad, for example, I mean, it's quite a bit of food. So I think it's pretty good value for money, and the fact that everything is made fresh every single day. And I think that's what draws people in, and that's why the place is pretty crowded. And ultimately, prior to pandemic, we were really trying to figure out what do we do here, because we're capacity constrained. We just, you know, the place is full. We can't fit any more tables. You know, what are we going to do? How do we grow this business?
All right.
So you know, talked about a number of different things around that, but
are people able to use those tables that are outside?
So this is something actually that the landlord has really helped us out with. So this whole atrium is just adjacent to our space. We were, as part of our lease, we were allowed to put a couple of tables just in front of the glass there that you see. And you know, I had a conversation with the guy who owns the building, and said, well, you know, we want to space people out and make them comfortable. You know, is there anything we can do? And he said, tell you what, you know, we've got an open atrium here, and they had some nice decorations. He does a very nice job with the decorations, especially in the summer. I hope they'll do it again this summer. They put out these gorgeous flowers all up and down the whole place, if you're familiar with it, and it attracts people, and they walk around, and it's good for everyone. Likewise, they do a nice display right here in the center, and it changes throughout the year. And he was nice enough to just say, you know what, tell you what, screw that, we'll put some tables out there for you. So right now we're kind of doing a hybrid. We've got the seats out there and in here. Eventually that'll all come back in here though.
I want to wind it down, but get to the most important stuff last, so that anybody that's actually stuck with us is actually getting all the good stuff.
Right.
Being that this is founded on bread, being that it is founded on bakery, you guys have a bunch of different types of bread, but kind of what's the difference between an artisanal bread and something that somebody's getting at, you know, a local grocery store?
Right. Now, the first thing I will say, Colin, is I don't bake the bread myself. So the original stone oven comprised the restaurant locations and the commercial bakery. We don't own the commercial bakery. Actually, the original owners did sell that to a third party. So the way it's structured right now is original owners own the Lee Road, we own this store, and then another third party owns that commercial bakery. So they're really involved in the day-to-day of making the bread. But everything is, so first of all, there's no preservatives of any kind used in the bread. The recipes are pretty old. The original owner, Tatiana, came from Russia, and she brought some of her original recipes from, I don't know how they were passed down in her family, but she developed a number of recipes. Everything's made by hand, it's all hand shaped. And now for sandwiches, they do put it in a pan, because you need to have a bit of cross section on your bread so that you can put something on it. So,
right.
So it's ultimately ingredients, no preservatives. It's made to be consumed that day or the next day, really.
Right.
And people that buy the bread here, I'll tell them, it's meant to be consumed. So if you're not going to consume this today or tomorrow, please freeze it.
Right.
And I'll explain to them exactly the best way to freeze that. Because it's not, you buy a loaf of something from the grocery store, and you can leave it sitting outside on your shelf, on your countertop for a week or, a week and a half, and, nothing grows on it. This is meant to be consumed.
At our house, I would definitely say bread is undoubtedly the number one thing that we waste. And, I always get mad when we waste food, but bread was the one thing where it was, at least it went bad. Like, at least we know, like most of our grocery shopping is Aldi, and, they have some bread at Aldi that won't mold at all. They have some bread that'll mold in 3-4 days. And you're like, yeah, we wasted it, but we're eating such a better quality. Like, that's what, like, I'm a kind of a hypocrite. I'll still eat at Wendy's or Burger King, but I won't eat McDonald's because I've seen too many videos of McDonald's hamburgers never rotting. Like, if there's
They're like the Twinkies.
yeah, if there's
burgers,
no
yeah.
mold on it, like how much of that is just staying in me forever? So I think that's where you're kind of getting at
No,
too.
but you'll live
Right.
forever, right? If you eat that, because you'll never mold.
But I'll never mold, but I won't live forever.
All right, that's true. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At least you won't have mold.
So it's a commercial bakery, but are they sending you guys dough and you're baking it off here? Or
No,
how does that work?
so the bread is all baked overnight.
Okay.
I put in an order essentially downtown with the downtown folks every day. I put my orders in by noon for the next day. So people special order different types of breads. There's breads and rolls and a variety of different types of offerings that can come from there. They're great to work with because they'll literally, if I want one loaf of, Asiago cheese bread for tomorrow, or, cranberry walnut or whatever it happens to be, they'll make that for me. Challah, so we have a big Jewish community in this area, and so we, every Friday, we order a whole bunch of challah from them, and they make it, but they start to mix dough at noon, and then they let it proof into the evening. I don't know exactly how long it takes, but they bake essentially overnight, and then they deliver here first thing in the morning. So their drivers are out at 5 in the morning. We start our prep, these days we start our prep here at 6. And then that bread comes in fresh. What we do bake off here is a lot of the pastries. So like your croissants, your scones, tea biscuits, those types of things. So first thing in the morning we come in, that's what we do. We bake that off. And then we get into our food prep. So like, the chicken, for example, that goes in the salad. We roast that chicken every morning here. All of the sides, the lettuce, the vegetables, we're back there just chopping like madmen all morning. So,
All right.
So that.
And that was the thing about this place, is that I think it's all accessible food, and there's nothing mysterious. You know what I mean? Sometimes you go to restaurants and you're like, okay, it tastes good, but what the heck is this? Here, it's like, it's all stuff you know. It's like, lettuce, tomatoes, chicken, like know all these things, and that's literally what we're putting together. So there's no mystery to our food, and I think that's what's really appealing for a lot of people here.
Well, the other great thing that I've found, and it took me a little while because we do have a fairly extensive menu, and then everything's got to be made, so it takes a while just to learn what all is in everything. But now when I have folks come in and they say, well, I have this allergy, this dietary restriction, this whatever, I can pretty much tell them because I make every single item, completely from scratch. So I can tell you that yes, that does have something that would have corn in it, for example. I had somebody in here yesterday asking about, corn. And so, if you think about all the components that might go into one of our salads, where you've got, like a scoop of our chicken tarragon salad on top of the greens, and then it's got some couscous and some tabbouleh in there, these flavor combinations are great, and they're interesting, they're unique, and people love them. But there's kind of a lot of ingredients then when you start to think about it in terms of, well, you did have to make the tabbouleh, you had to make the couscous, you made your dressing from scratch, right? So what's in that? So if somebody comes in and says, well, this is my issue, I can actually sit there and think, okay, well, this, and this, okay, could, be just fine for you, and stay away from this because I know we used, some corn oil, for example, it goes into the potato chips when we fry it, that kind of thing. So it's been really good in terms of servicing the customers that have those dietary restrictions or specific issues, because we can say with confidence, yes, you're fine with this.
And it's super customizable. That's the other thing. Because, people I'm like a super picky eater. It's like, I want that, but without this, and this. And you can actually do that here. Because we just make it right there, on demand.
I would say, Colin, I'd say at best, we have 10% of our orders are just what's on the menu.
Gotcha.
It's probably a solid 90% where somebody says, change this, change that, leave that out, or add this, you know, it's, so in this market, in this day and age, you have to be able to do the customization. And to do that well, you have to have very good employees, and that's something we've really been blessed with here. We've got a core group. We are hiring, by the way, so if anybody out there would want, because we do need some more folks here, but there's a core group of people that have been here for a long time, and we also have a number of regulars that come in, and we know that what their restrictions are. So they walk through the door, the customer walks through the door, and these folks are here, they're already making it, you know, so then they said, wow, that was fast, because they already know your order and they're getting it ready for you. But if you come in, you know, new and you've never been here before, you can expect that they do get the order right. Of course, everybody every once in a while is going to make a mistake.
Right.
But it's something that we pride ourselves on, that customer experience, making sure that the order is right. Before we bought this place, I came here, my partner came here at different times, and I'd get a coffee and I would sit right there on that table, and I would just sit there for hours, and they probably thought, who's this weird dude, you know, watching us so intently the whole time. I tried to pretend I was on my phone, but and I could see what the issues were. You know, there were cleanliness issues. There were, you know, it seemed like about a third, you know, my estimation, a quarter to a third of the folks that would take their food to their table, or that we would bring to the table, they would bring to the table, I should say, would get up and walk back up to the counter for one reason or another. They were missing something, they need, you know, whatever. And so when we took over, so that it ends now. Okay, we've got to figure out a way. If we have to change the workflow, if we have to change our processes to get there, we have to, because that experience is the most important part of this whole thing. And without that, you don't have a successful business. So we worked very hard to get to that point, but we were blessed with, you know, a few of the folks that have been here for a long time, that know the business, you know, certainly knew it much better than me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, we learned so much from our own staff, because we didn't know initially.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that, you know, again, if you're out there looking at a new business opportunity, consider all of those things, because that knowledge that's you know, I can't forget the name, what they call it, the term for that type of knowledge, but that's in the folks that are already here, is so valuable. You know, compare that to starting something completely from scratch, where you've got to develop all these processes. Yes, you'll get it to where you want it eventually, but it's a lot of work if you don't realize how much is already in the existing business that you're buying.
Right.
So that's a consideration, you know, certainly for somebody that's looking to, you know, get into a new venture.
There's definitely a reason I talked about food towards the end, because I'm still thinking about half the bread things you were just saying. But also with that, you do such a good job, like I told you before, of as soon as I saw your Instagram, like you guys use a lot of red backgrounds for salads and things like that. Could you kind of give us a couple tips, because you do have a photography background, but what's going into your brain when you're trying to make that food look the best for Instagram? How can kind of people, even if they're here, you know, just eating their own salad, how can they up their food photography game?
Oh gosh, I mean, we recently hired an intern who's in college, and she's been helping us as well, because she's younger, and so she kind of knows what's going on with Instagram. But yeah, I mean, the idea is to have variety on the page, but also, like you said, with the color, especially with our salads, there's a lot of color in salad, and you kind of eat with your eyes, right, when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's beautiful food. And so you pick backgrounds that make your food pop. That's sort of what we do. So you pick something in there that matches with the background.
So you have a tomato in the salad, which brings you to the red to kind of make everything pop, but also kind of come together.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you also want variety. We also do a lot of perspective. So like, you don't want everything to be like up close, you know, where you're looking at croutons and then something else up close, the lettuce. You want to have things from far away. You want to have things up close where you really see the texture, because a lot of our food has really amazing texture. So that's something that we highlight as well. You also, you know, do a lot of, like, we like to do empty space, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Where it's not just like filled with stuff in the picture, but you let the space kind of speak for itself with a little bit of maybe the food in there. And we also do sort of atmosphere. So there have been some pictures on there which maybe you saw where I'm trying to think, I think I put like some of the salad and a piece of bread in a mug, which like we don't do that, but it's a concept, right? It's the idea that those are the things we have and it looks beautiful. together. So you can do that kind of stuff as well. Just off the top of the head, I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Have you guys thought about doing like a social media photo contest, kind of, have a hashtag of stone oven photo or something like that, and somebody comes in, they purchase a meal, and whoever could take the best photo in X amount of time, which
It's a great.
that way you're getting kind of a little bit of organic momentum of, they're sharing it so that it gets more attention. You could, whoever gets the most likes on whatever, or
Right.
whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, we initially, again, when we started in October of 2019, we had all these ideas. We were
Right.
like, all right, we're going to engage people who come in because we had such a huge customer base. So we're like, we're going to engage people, have them really interact with all the stuff on social media. But then the pandemic hit,
Right.
and all our priorities, I mean, in terms of social media, I got to be
Absolutely.
honest, it just went out the window.
For sure.
We were just trying to survive, for a while there. But yeah, we had ideas kind of like what you're saying, because we had this mural done. So I was like, oh, how about if we make it sort of like an Instagrammable spot?
Right.
So you have people come in, they take a selfie, or they, hold up the food and take a picture in front of the wall, and then use some kind of hashtag, have contests. Another thing we were thinking about is maybe eventually doing things like where we share recipes. Like, what can you do with some of the bread that we have? Because people come
That's a
in
good
just
idea.
to buy bread, and they take it home, things you can do with that. I also wanted to highlight, because our staff is amazing, highlight our staff, like, this is what they do, this is how they make the food. Talk a little bit about the people who actually work here.
Right.
There's a lot of ideas that we had initially, but again, we're
sure.
just starting to kind of reconsider that again. But like what you're saying, absolutely, I think that's something that we want to be doing in the future, yeah.
Another one that came to mind again, like while I listen, it's kind of like, you get the business idea thing going, and you're like, oh, you could do this, you could do that with marketing. Knowing that you guys really put an emphasis on your staff, and you clearly have a good staff, and you're also into customizations, to have kind of like either a weekly or monthly social media feature of, this is, Sarah's been with us for X amount of
Yes,
time. This
right.
is here is Sarah's special sandwich. Like,
Right.
this is what Sarah makes. Because
Yeah.
I'm that weirdo, and Maura hates it when we go out to dinner, where, I'm like, I'm looking between 2 or 3 things. Waitress, you're the one that's watching this come out of the kitchen all the time. Like, I like all of these. You could pick. Or what would you eat? Or like the Colin's coffee thing that we mentioned. The dude had been in his, I think he said 20 years.
Yeah, something like that.
He'd been in business 20 years, and nobody asked him, what does he drink?
Yeah.
And then I walk in one day, and I'm just telling him about this shitty experience I had at Starbucks, and I'm like, whatever you have, man, I don't care what it costs. Like, like, put it in the cup, tell me what I owe you. Like, I want to have what the dude running his own coffee
Right.
shop for 20 years drinks.
For sure.
And it was strong, but it was delicious.
Yeah.
And he warned me, he's like, dude, I put like 5 shots of espresso and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm game, let's go. But,
Yeah,
like,
right.
you really, and I value that you guys do these substitutions, but kind of, I don't eat anything on a Reuben individually. I don't like rye bread, I don't like sauerkraut, I don't overly like corned beef, but you put it all together, and it's just
Right.
because somebody's realized that this combination is good, I eat it, I'm like, this is a great sandwich.
Yeah, for sure.
For
Absolutely.
both of you guys, what's your go-to when you come here? If somebody was watching this and they were only going to try what one of you guys was, your main dish, just like I kind of explained, what would they order if they were ordering for you?
Right. So there's some interesting combinations that we do with our salads, where we have it as a side, actually, a couscous, and it's got a number of different other ingredients in it, lemon and bell pepper and garlic and these different things. We make a tabbouleh as well. And one thing that I think comes together very nicely, kind of like you're talking about the Reuben, and we do have a Reuben also, by the way, which is very good, is you combine these things. You make a salad, you put some roasted red peppers in there, some cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, some chicken, and then you drop some of this couscous and tabbouleh, and then you put some more homemade dressing on top of that. And it's got like a little tanginess, and you'd almost think, whoa, this is, is this a little too tangy your first bite? And then you start eating and you can't stop. It's just amazing. It comes together in this way, kind of like you were talking about with the Reuben.
Right, because you would never think, like, why would you put couscous in a salad?
Right.
But then you do it, and then you're like,
And
dang, that
tabbouleh
tastes
has
really
like
good.
so many herbs in it, all these fresh
And the
herbs.
textures work together.
Yeah, it's just, it comes together. I wish I could say I came up with the recipe myself. I didn't. But it's fantastic all together. And so
Well, and
people
then
will
the
come in.
croutons too.
And
which,
we homemade.
Our specialty is bread, so of
Right.
course we're going to make croutons.
So we make our croutons
Yeah.
out of the bread that,
Yeah.
here.
Just like Texas Roadhouse, they're known for their bread, and their croutons are amazing because they have good bread.
Yeah.
Are you guys croutons better than Texas Roadhouse?
I haven't had Texas
I've never
Roadhouse,
had
but I would
Texas
say
Roadhouse.
absolutely.
You've never?
Yes, nope. But I will tell you now that our
Absolutely
croutons are
better.
absolutely better.
No, they're good. It's fun too when we make our croutons because that smell when they're roasting in the oven. I mean, the whole first floor of this mall smells like our croutons.
That's awesome.
People come in and like, what you guys cooking? So,
And you can even, I mean, we have pictures of our croutons being made, on Instagram, Facebook,
Awesome.
at Stone Oven Eton. But yeah, you can see those things up close and see what they kind of look like too. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what are you eating? Are you eating the same thing as he, or what's your go-to when you come in?
I like the salads. I was never a huge tuna salad fan because I don't like mayo. Oh, it's kind of like your Reuben thing, right? Like I was like, ew, mayo. I think it's kind of gross. But then eventually I was like, okay, fine, I'll try the tuna salad because so many people order it, and I was like, well, it can't be that bad. And I tried it, and I was like, it's actually like really good. So then I was hooked on that for a while. I was doing like tuna salads, with a huge scoop of tuna salad. But I also we have a panini grill, and you know that like any sandwich
On a panini grill.
you put on a panini, it doesn't matter, it's good. And so
Absolutely.
I got hooked on that. So it just takes it up a notch when you panini-ize
yeah.
any
Well,
of the sandwiches.
the other thing I will say is the soups that we do here are really
right,
amazing.
Yeah.
The variety, I think, I'm trying to think the recipe book. There's something like 60 different soups that we do.
Nice.
And they're all homemade, fresh.
Are they changing
every day.
weekly, daily?
They change
or-
daily, yeah. So I couldn't tell you, Colin, how many calls we get every day. People just say, hey, what's your soup today?
Nice.
Because they all know that it's good, but they all have their favorites, and we mix it up every single day, so you never know what it's going to be. We have a ton of vegan, gluten-free, or at the very least vegetarian options. Some of them have meat in it, but every single day we'll have a vegan option up there, and almost every day there's a gluten-free as well. So, and you might think that, well, you're going to lose a little flavor there. No, these things are amazing. When you do it with the different lentils and all kinds of things, ingredients that go into these soups, some of them are kind of crazy, like coconut, carrot, ginger or something you might not think is great, and then you take a sip and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
like
this
comes
is amazing.
together somehow.
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
these soup recipes are fantastic.
Right.
And our person here who makes the soups is really, really talented. So so that's another thing that I'll try those pretty frequently just to try them, and then I'll have that for lunch quite a bit here. So
Gotcha.
because that's something that's a real variety. Real variety. I mean, the menu is fairly standard, but the soups are changing all the time.
But one of the only things on the menu that we haven't covered is you guys, is it a big coffee business? I know I mentioned kind of the late night thing, but with breakfast,
Right.
I imagine it's a big thing.
It is. It's certainly nothing like a Starbucks.
Right.
They're known for that. They churn out millions of cups of coffee over there. We do have an organic, fair trade, blend that we serve. As your regular drip coffee, we do flavored coffee, and then we have the whole series of espresso drinks that you would get at Starbucks.
Okay.
And we have a local supplier here in Cleveland that we work with.
Is it Port Cleveland? Because that's kind of like the ulterior motive of this question.
It's City Roast, actually.
Do you know about Port
who we work
Cleveland?
with. No, I don't.
So Port Cleveland was one of the original interviews that I did. Charlie Eisenstadt is like a scientist of coffee.
Okay.
And since we've done that, they've shut down their actual location that was downtown, but they're doing their own coffee roasting now. And when it was open, nobody wants to go all the way downtown for coffee. So every time that I have the opportunity to talk to people like yourself, I'm like, we need to get more places with Port Cleveland coffee on the east side. I want to say we'll get you their Instagram and get you guys in
Sure.
touch, but
Yeah.
they're the same thing. I would always go to Starbucks and I'm caramel macchiato, I'm getting extra caramel, all this extra bullshit in it. I wanted to have this interview with Charlie and the same thing. I'm like, well, whatever you're pouring for yourself, pour me one.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking a black coffee, and by 4 or 5 sips in, I was like, this doesn't need anything. This is great. Like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I realized that I'd been drinking just bad coffee for so long that I was like, oh, Folgers, Maxwell House, all this stuff is no good. Starbucks essentially is no good. And then you're like, oh, this, you're drinking it and you pick up notes of, all different things.
Yeah.
And people like him are like, yeah, you're tasting this, and this. And you're like, sure am. Never would have figured that out. But
Yeah.
definitely look into them. I'm sure what you guys have is good. But
Yeah,
kind of
no,
keeping
we're-
that Cleveland connection and also with the show. you know, you talk to this person, that person, this person. As soon as you say mural, I'm like, oh, we just talked to an artist the other day, or we were talking to whatever. So I always like to try to like get that circle connected, just like you guys did with this restaurant of, you know, who has a restaurant that we could get into.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always interested in exploring new opportunities. We've had a couple of conversations with different roasters in Cleveland, not for you know, as yet, but you know, I'd be happy to talk with them, and you know, even having a one more blend alongside what we call our stone oven blend is just our standard sort of, you know, medium to dark roast. Would be great.
Also, I mean, again, you know, the pandemic changed everything, but another idea that we had maybe down the road was partnering with somebody local who makes something, like, I don't know, something that would go with bread, for example.
Everything.
And then we would sort of feature that, and people could buy it here.
Yeah, jams,
you know?
or honeys, or, you know, any of those types
Yeah,
of things.
yeah,
We
yeah.
just didn't get that far along.
Right, but that was an idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, the collaboration, I mean, in the marketing world is the way to scale and way to really exceed. But like you said, if people are now, and like you said, I've noticed the last week or two, there is a difference, at least locally, of people are a little bit more comfortable, you know, going in and out of a store, or I have seen a lot more, less drive-through lines, and more people actually like into places. And again, people are actually now realizing, you know, a lot of places that did have drive-throughs weren't letting people in, or like you guys weren't allowed to have people in. People are now realizing, oh, I can go back to almost my normal routine, or find a new normal routine, and start finding places like this. Did we leave anything out that I mean, you guys have 8 million things that you guys are doing, but did we not focus on anything? I think we hit all the key things of what we have going on here.
I certainly think so.
Yeah, I mean, because the main thing I thought was, you know, we didn't know anything, but we did it.
Right.
And then the pandemic hit, and we still survived.
And you still did it.
So it's like you can do it, and just like don't wait.
Right. And if you, like you said, if you made it through, you know, there shouldn't, in theory, there shouldn't be another economic hard time like you had gone through with this. I mean, never have I seen the government saying you can't operate.
Right.
You know, so like to know that you were able to roll with the punches through all those different things, and you're still here, and you still actually like what you're doing. It seems like you're still talking passionately about it. You're still here, you know, doing the dishes and everything else. You're not just like, we own it, put somebody else in charge. Let's hope it, you know, gets back a return. So
yeah, I think that's another good point that you're making, because, you know, you have to. We've always talked about doing something like this. We enjoy doing it, and so, you know, as a result, either I or my partner are always here 100% of the time. So anytime somebody comes in and asks to talk to the owner, one of us is here, and you know, maybe we'll get away from that at some point in the future, but, you know, for the time being, we're always here.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that I think helps to elevate that customer experience as well. They're not hitting a you know, brick wall when they say, well, hey, you know, I've got a question or an issue or whatever it might happen to be, and then the person who's standing there says, well, nobody's here to help you. You know, they can always get directly to the owner, and, you know, I think.
And also that's important, I think, for the staff as well, because you can't like expect to start a business and then just let it run itself.
Right.
It doesn't do that. You have to be there, and you have to. I mean, the big thing for us is that they're here all the time doing the thing. You know, like he was saying, he's washing dishes, he's mopping the floor, he's making the food. And when the staff sees that, they realize that you're hands-on, that you care just, you know, about it just as much as they should care about it. And then that kind of rubs off on everybody. And then that sort of creates the culture of the workplace. So I think that's super duper important. You can't just walk off and think that, no, I'm a business owner.
A lot of people
doesn't work
think
that way.
that. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll just get this thing running on autopilot, and then that's it, and I'll be done. You know, and you can't. I mean, you're sitting here, right? I mean, you're conducting this interview yourself.
It's you.
It's not right. You know, hey, so and so.
There is a Colin behind Colin's conversation.
Right.
He's real.
Exactly. So I think you have to be willing to make that commitment, at least for quite a while, until you know this thing inside and out. And, you know, if you're remote, you could be on the phone and quickly assess what's going on and deal with the problem.
It's 24/7.
But it takes a lot of time.
It really is, yeah. And things happen, and you have to be ready to be like, okay, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing right now and run in and deal with that problem. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, I think it's Instagram that kind of made the entrepreneur life, you know, this extravagant, great thing. You know, you make all this money, you fly private planes, you get pretty models and everything. But what it really is that's like 20 years into it, you know, after you put in 18-hour days and trying to get everything figured out and fail 18,000 different ways and figure out the way to not do that again and go the other way. which you guys are doing, but the way that we end every interview, you could figure out which one does this. We steal this one from Hot Ones, but I'm going to reposition the camera. You guys get up to 1 minute to kind of end the interview however you want.
So we're the Stone Oven at Eton. I'm Ravi, and this is Julia, and we're the owners. We offer fresh, customized sandwiches, salads, soups, and bakery every day. Right now we're open from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're located at the Eton Mall, which is on Chagrin Boulevard in Woodmere. And we have just opened up recently our dine-in again. So if you're looking for a place to gather with friends and family and have a good meal for breakfast or for lunch, then we'd love to see you here. You can always order online. So we have, our online ordering is at Toast Tab, so it's toasttab.com/Stone Oven Eton. Place your order there, we'll have it ready for you when you come in, either for contactless pickup or for curbside. Or of course, you're welcome to dine here with us, as I said. We also are on Grubhub, on Uber Eats, and on DoorDash, so you can always have your food delivered for you. And as far as social media goes, do you want to share the...
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy. If you want to, sort of check us out online, then you can go to, on Facebook, we're Stone Oven Bakery Eton, that's E-T-O-N. And then on Instagram, we're at Stone Oven Eton, all one word. So you can check that out. There's obviously pictures of all our food, which is super duper gorgeous, like Colin said, and it will make you hungry. We also have videos, especially on Facebook. The mural that we have, it'll give you a sense of what the atmosphere is like inside. You can watch videos to see what our location is like as well.